This is Winter and Ian celebrating the Halloween month by
Happy Halloween, everybody.
telling our own personal Halloween stories, so personal
Very
ghost
scary
stories.
time of the year.
I personally had a lot of things that happened to me in my family. We've all had our own experiences, including my mother and my aunt being actually physically attacked, and me myself being attacked. And so definitely have some stories. Probably won't go into all of that, or my mom's personal stuff, but we'll tell you some of the scary moments that we've had. And so I want to hand over the hat to Ian for the first story.
The hat.
The hat or pumpkin.
Uh, Alrighty. I'll kick this off with I also have some stories. Yeah, just so you know that I think Ray explained pretty well the nature of this video. It's going to be a lot of scary stories, real life experiences uh, that we have experienced. For the record, it's like I, I only speak for myself, but I don't necessarily believe in ghosts or anything like that. But again,
How dare you?
we've had experiences. Ray's probably had a lot more stuff than I have, but I've had experiences that just freak me out and that I can't explain. And seeing as how it's Halloween, they're pretty good stories, and it'd be good time to do a video on it. So that's what to expect moving forward. Spoopy stuff. So I'll go ahead and kick it off
Take the damn hat.
with I'm sorry, what?
Take the hat. Take the damn hat.
Oh, all right, I got the hat. So I guess I'll put it on, and I'll start with one of the stories that sort of has a better explanation for it, it definitely was one that really did freak me out and unsettled me and made it to where I couldn't really sleep that night. So whenever I was little, uh, I can't really remember exactly how old I was, but it was around the time that I was in kindergarten. So I'm guessing I was around 5 years old or so, 5, 6 years old. And my grandfather on my mother's side, he passed away. My grandfather, Cecil. And after he passed away, um, my my mom would talk about would tell stories about, because it was her father, so she was you know grieving, and she wanted to talk about the possibility of what happens to people after they pass away. I think to kind of help deal with it, and she would like to tell a story about, this was before I was born. um, my grandmother on my mother's side, Pearl, I never knew her, but she was my grandpa's wife, obviously. um, and I never got to know her. She passed away right before I died. But whenever she passed away, my mom liked to tell the story, and I'd heard it several times. Whenever they'd be in the car, my older brother, they'd be going on a drive. My parents with my older brother, and he would be sitting in the back seat, and he was around, I'd say 3 at the time, or somewhere around that age, and he would look out the window of the car into the mirrors. He would look in the rear view mirror and the side mirrors of the car. And when he'd be looking into the rear view mirror, he would be smiling and say, "Hi, Grandma," like he was talking to Grandma. And my parents would be like, "What are you talk? Who are you talking to?" And he would say, "I'm talking to Grandma," or something like that. Or he would just say, "Grandma," and he would say, "Hi, Grandma." And that was sort of weird
Oh wow,
for
yeah,
them,
that is weird.
uh, which I said, one might chalk up to the fact that um, that he that she had recently passed away, and it, one doesn't really know what's going on in the mind of a kid that young. But apparently, it wasn't an isolated incident. He would say things that indicated like he was talking to or seeing our grandma, at various different points in time. Not just the car is the one that I always remember and that they talk about. To me, that was always a little bit weird, a little bit a little bit scary, but I never really thought too much of it because I thought the same thing. But later on, whenever we got older, well, obviously I wasn't around when he was doing that. I just heard the story, but we were older, and yeah, and we were hanging out, and I I don't remember how we got on the conversation of it now, uh, but we were talking about, I think spooky things and scary things. And I was asking him, I was like, hey, you know the story that uh, mom always tells about you seeing grandma and stuff like that and saying hi to grandma. And he was like, oh yeah. And I was just like, do you remember that at all? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, do you just remember her talking about it, or do you remember seeing it? And he was like, no, I remember seeing it. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. And I was just like, what did you see exactly? You saw grandma? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, and what was she doing? And um, he was like, well, not a lot really. He's like, I would just see her sort of sitting there or standing there. And I was like, okay. I was like, in the mirror? He's like, yeah. And he's like, and sometimes other places, like at night. And I was like at night? And he's like, yeah. He's like when I was going to bed, he's like, sometimes she'd be there. And sometimes she would move up the wall. a- And then and then he's like, one time when I was trying to sleep, she moved up the wall and then moved across the ceiling. And then she would just look down at me from the ceiling.
Okay.
And I was like, and I was
Chill,
like,
grandma,
what was,
please. Chill.
I was like, what was she doing? And he was like, nothing, just smiling. And I was like, weren't you afraid? And he was like, not really. It was grandma. And to me, this was very unsettling. And here's the reason why. As siblings do, you tend to know your siblings very well, just like any other members of your family. It was just us. He's my only other sibling, my older brother. I knew when my brother was lying. He was a shitty liar. I assume he still is. I don't know. But he was a shitty liar. I knew for 100% certain that what he was telling me, he believed to be true. And that was extremely unsettling. It
Mm-hmm.
was, and it, I could not sleep at all that night. I was terrified because I was assured now that when people passed away, they were ghosts and they haunted you, and they would creep up the walls and look down at you from the ceiling. And just the mental imagery of what he described was just horrifying to me. And now, the reason why I started with this story is because of the fact that we later found out. Yeah, I mean, mental illness runs in our family. We later found out he has a lot of mental illnesses and problems, one of which is schizophrenia and many others. Um, it's easy to sort of now attribute such a thing to that.
Yeah.
He's had it for a long time. He's much worse now than he was back then, but
Oh man.
it's easy to sort of attribute it to that sort of thing. So that's kind of what I did. I'll never know for certain, but considering that he sees and hears things that aren't there now, and there's no real way of knowing for exactly how long, because he's never been very honest about it. With the his doctors and therapists and psychologists and stuff like that. So there's no real way of knowing. But yeah, that was really freaky for me. Imagining and I'd only seen her in pictures, and so that's what I was imagining in my head was
Mm-hmm.
the images I saw her in pictures, and just crawling up the walls and across the ceiling and looking down, and I just like, while you're trying to sleep, and I was just like, that didn't scare you? And he was like, well, no, it was grandma. It was grandma looking down at me and smiling. I was like, yeah, it was our dead grandma crawling up the wall and across the ceiling and smiling down at you from the ceiling. I was like, I think it's in the devil's in the details here, but yeah, so that's my first story. And here, you can have the hat now, and you can be the person who tells the next scary story.
Oh, sorry, I dropped the hat. Got the hat. So I guess it's my turn. So speaking of grandparents, especially ones we've never met before, my my granddad on my dad's side, we would always go visit my grandma. Just like the highlight of my childhood. You know, gonna go see grandma. You know, she's gonna spoil me. It's gonna be awesome. But I never got to meet my granddad. He passed away before my dad and my mom got together. So never met the guy. Was told he was really he was a hard man. He was at one point the whole reason how he ended up joining the military was he got in a bar fight, and broke one dude's back with a pool stick, and I guess like knocked the other guy out. He had to go to court, and he basically said you can either go to jail or go to go to jail or go to the military.
Oh, that's
So
something they did.
yeah, and so he was a pretty hardcore dude from what I hear. But he was really big in like family, you know, always family first. So like I said, never met him. My grandma had a painting of her, my granddad, and my dad and his older brother. Now he passed, like I said, he passed away before I was even thought of, you know, before my dad and my mom got together. Well, I remember that I would go visit my grandma a lot, and I was, oh man, I don't know, like 5, 6 maybe. Well, I would be playing in the playroom, and the way it would be is there was like these stepping stones outside the playroom, and there was these windows all around the playroom, and there's also kind of like part her office or whatever, but or like a secondary like a living room type thing. That's usually where we did all the Christmas stuff at and all the other things. Well, I remember playing. I remember seeing this older man with glasses. And he would always come from one side of the playroom where the windows began, and he would make his way, looking at the shrubs and the flowers and stuff, and he would be inspecting them, and he would make his way around the corner and then around the other side of the playroom, like on the outside. And I'm watching him because they had these big windows, and I'd be watching them, and finally I'd go tell my grandma, your friend's here, and then she would go to the door, and she would open the door, and no one would be there, and you know, I'd continue playing. I probably did this, I don't know, like 4 or 5 times, and eventually I got kind of in trouble for it. They thought I was lying. They thought I was fibbing, and I was like, no, grandma, your friend's always here. He's at the door. And I would always see this guy just out every time, at least for the first 2 years. Every time we would go visit, I would see this old man eventually make his way to the front door from the corner of the house all the way around, all the way to the front door. But I never see him knock. I never saw him waiting there. I always saw him go to the front door, and then I'd go tell my grandma. It wasn't until I was older, when I was looking at that painting, I really was looking at it, I was like, man, that guy looks really familiar. And then I don't know, like just tuned to finally connected that I was seeing my granddad this entire time. With that said, much later, I guess it was around the same time, because I was like a teenager at that point when I finally just kind of put two and two together. I didn't really think about it until that point. That my mom told me the reason why your father hates scary movies or ghost anything. Like, we started watching The Sixth Sense, and my dad would just throw his hands up there. I'm not watching this shit, and he just stumble outside and like just hated anything related to ghosts. Well, come to find out, when I was born, my dad woke up really late at night, crawled out of bed and went to go take a piss, and I woke up and I was in the crib and I was crying. He's like, oh god, he's gonna wake Sharon. She'd been up all night with the baby, so he's like, oh. And then I stopped crying. And then my dad, he gets out of the bathroom, flushes the toilet, washes the hands, walks around the corner, and the first thing he sees is me being lifted out of the crib. I don't remember exactly. It's been a while since I heard this story. My parents do not talk about ghost stuff very often.
Right.
Like I said, my mom was attacked, and she just The way she feels about ghost stuff is they're just demons or something evil or something like just because of what happened to
Yeah.
her in her childhood. But so they don't talk about stuff very often. But either I was being lifted or it was leaning into the crib. But all he saw was just this black silhouette of a thing calming me down.
Could he make out like if it was like a human person? You said a black silhouette of a thing, so
Of a thing. Yeah, that's all I ever got. That's all the information I ever got. But he could make out like this black silhouette of something, and and it looked up at him, and he felt cold chills all through him. And then it lifted. It either put me down, and then stepped back, or it leaned up and stepped back. Like I said, it's been a minute since I've heard this story. Like the last time I heard this story was like my teen, like no, maybe it was like my young adult years. It was like the last time I heard this story. But it stepped away, and then it just vanished. It just went away. Just like it was like this living shadow stood up and took a step back and just faded into the rest of the dark room. And apparently, for my dad, trying to go to sleep after that was almost nearly impossible. but but yeah, so it's just things like that, and I don't know. Like I kind of always thought my granddad was kind of watching my back, pretty much all through my life. That grandson he never met kind of thing.
yeah.
And there's other crazy moments that happen in the house, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, like seeing my granddad, knowing that's probably what I saw as a kid. Sometimes seeing like looking out. My grandma had these pecan trees, like huge pecan trees. She would always be out there picking up pecans for, all throughout the year or whatever. And sometimes I'd see someone I don't recall. Like it's not my grandma. It's some older guy out there picking up pecans, and then I'd go away from the window, go to the back door, open the back door, and that person's gone. So it's actually
Sure,
I
it
still
wasn't
wear.
just some old guy stealing
It
y'all's
could have been.
pecans and then just hucking
Very
himself
much.
over the fence, eating himself out of your backyard before you can see. He'd see you coming to the door. He's like, "That little kid's coming to get me. Can't let him see me." Nah,
Right,
I'm just kidding.
very much so. It could be. I actually still wear his coin around my neck. My granddad, he used to make necklaces out of like random stuff. He'd find like stones, and he would put like a gloss finish on a
Human
stone.
teeth,
Human teeth, no. These like ancient, but these like old coins or whatever.
these ancient talismans with the power of gods. He would find those laying on the ground and make necklaces out of them.
Funny story is, I one time, I had the first coin I put around my neck, which was an old Chinese coin, and he didn't drill a hole in this one. This one had the square hole that they normally would, and come to
Yeah.
find out it was worth a lot of money. I was dating this girl, and we were swimming together, and it fell off. And come to find out, like that coin was worth like a couple $1,000s. I had
Oh
no idea. I've been
wow.
wearing it on my neck for like for years, and then so once I finally found it, I found this really old coin that I have now, and it's so faded you can't tell what it is. But he drilled a hole through it, so now it's pretty much worthless. And
Well, that's not worthless. Even if they have, if it was worth a lot, it's still going to be worth the money. It's not going to be worth as much money, but
yeah,
yeah, it
so
wouldn't
that's
be
what I wear around
worthless.
my neck now. But anyway, so here you go. You can have that
I
back.
didn't know that. I saw you wearing that thing around your neck a lot. I never thought to ask what it was. I just figured it was some little bit of bling that you got from Hot Topic or something. So this was, let me see. I'm 38 now, and it happened I think around the age of say 20 years old, maybe 19 years old, something like that. And I was uh, uh, I was seeing a girl who was living with me at the time, and we were in the living room area of my house, and we were going to. We had a fold-out couch, which was pulled out, and we were going to just chill in there. And I guess the early sort of the just turn of the new millennium or late 90s version of Netflix and chill. we were just gonna we were which that's kind of a dated reference even even now, uh but yeah, we were basically going to watch movies, like I think videos still. I don't know,
Air
whatever,
quote.
whatever. We're gonna watch. We're gonna watch some crap, and we were gonna just hang out and lay on the bed and stuff like that till we went to sleep. Now, when I say I'd been up a long time, not really. I mean, I'd been up to the point where I was tired, but not. I wasn't like up for 24 hours or some crazy shit like that. She was already in bed, and she had what she brought over her makeup set. So she had one of those. She was one of those girls who has like a huge clear tackle box full of makeup crap, and she had a light up mirror, sort of ring mirror thing that she would have her makeup on. She had it set up next to the bed, which I guess she was just going to get ready in the morning, pretty much sitting on the edge of the bed or whatever like that. And she would keep that stuff close by. So she had it sitting out. Like I said, she was already in the bed, and I was just like, let me put on some comfortable clothes and we get in. So that's what I was doing. I was changing in the same room, and I was changing in front of that mirror. And it was just a small mirror, it's a small round mirror, but it's big enough that you can see yourself pretty good. And as I was taking off my clothes, I was sort of like changing pants or whatever to sleep pants or whatever, and I look up, I glance up. Now I forget why I glanced up, um, but I looked up and I lock eyes with the mirror, and I am standing in front of the mirror, and what directly in front of the mirror basically, and what I see in the mirror was the face of a woman, and it was not a happy face. It was not an angry face. It was hard to describe because my memory is a little fuzzy, but it was distressed. Like, I don't want to say like I want to what I do want to say is try to imagine the face of somebody who is hanging, like hung or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. But that's not exactly what it was. Like it was, but it was somewhat similar to that. And this happened in the span of a second. So I look up, I see this image, and I immediately look down, and I'm continuing to take my clothes off. And the reason why, and I know that wouldn't be normal behavior, but I mean that's why I wanted to specify. This happened in the span of a second because I look up, I see this face, and I look down because for a moment, for a brief moment, my mind thinks I just saw my girlfriend in the mirror
Mm-hmm.
because it looked not at all like her, but just similar enough that it didn't immediately register to me that it wasn't her. So I look up, I see this image, I look back down, and then I just stop immediately, frozen with fear, because I realize vividly what I had just seen. Now, like anybody else, my inclination was to want to look up and look again
Mm-hmm.
to either confirm or deny what I had just seen. Now here's the other thing. This mirror was at about I guess nipple height to me or something. It was, and I was bent over, and the image that I saw in the mirror was looking directly at me at head level,
Mm-hmm.
and my girlfriend was across the room to the side, impossible to be reflected in the mirror. What should have been reflected was my own face looking back at me, and that is not what I saw. I saw the image of a woman with this distress. I still remember what it looks like. It was older than my girlfriend at the time. She looked like the woman in the mirror looked to be, I would say, in her mid 30s or so, maybe late 30s, and I could not look up again. I stopped, and I remember I stopped and I didn't move, and I was trying to think in my mind. I was literally panicking, I guess. It's sort of like if something were something real, like, like you're being, like there's a wild animal or something. Like I'm like frozen sort of in like this panic, and my girlfriend noticed this and she was like, what? she knows something's wrong, but she doesn't know what because I just stopped dead still. So she thinks it's one of like because I've had health problems my whole life, and she thinks maybe I'm having a heart palpitation or I'm having a panic attack, which I was in a sense, but not a clinical anxiety panic attack. I'm just stuck. And she's like, what? And I don't know because I'm afraid to answer her because I don't know why, but I was frozen with fear, and I was like, if I say what I just saw, this is going to attack me or her or something like that is what I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking in my mind. Now it's not really a rational thought, but I what I just experienced wasn't very rational. Like I don't, and I'm trying to decide in this moment, what do I do? Because I'm too afraid to look up back into the mirror, and I'm almost too afraid to move. Well, I was in the process of basically of pulling my sleep pants up at that moment whenever I just briefly looked. So what I ended up doing was like I guess something very similar to what like a child would do. I pull my pants up real quick and I just sort of dive at the bed. I sort of run at the bed to get into the bed because I don't know really what else to do. Like it didn't really make a lot of sense for me to scream or to say or to tell her to run or anything like that because in my mind what I even though what I experienced I couldn't explain, it didn't make any rational sense to believe that this was real. So I sort of dive at the bed and then I'm in the bed and I do look in the direction of the mirror. Now the mirror is no longer facing me and I cannot see the reflection of it. And I knew I wouldn't be able to, which is what allowed me to look at the mirror. But I wanted to see. I was sort of glancing around the room, everywhere, just sort of to see if there's anything amiss, I guess, because I didn't know what else to do. Like, and she still doesn't know what's going on because I'm looking around. I guess I'm brave enough in this situation to look around to see to catch maybe the reflection off glass or something to see if I see this again. But I could not look back in the mirror again. And she's like, "What is it? What's going on?" And so I tell her, I was like, "I don't know. I kind of don't want to tell you." And she was like, now she was a great believer in that stuff, but I explained to her what I just experienced, and she didn't know what to make of it. She was like, but she believed that it was, that I had seen a spirit or something like that. I don't know. Um, that's one of the it was what for me it was one of the more terrifying things that happened to me in terms of because of the direct observation and the close proximity to it was to me terrifying. But I don't. Again, all of these are stories to which I can't really explain what happened. The only thing I can really say is I feel like my eyes were playing tricks on me. I saw something that wasn't there, but I don't know. But that's the end of that one, and I'll pass it off on to you.
So speaking of like occult type stuff or the Ouija board, things like that. Um, this I'm gonna have to dive a little bit into some of the stories from my aunts and my mom, I'm trying to stay away from that because eventually I would like to, if I could talk my mom into doing it, recording her versions of what happened because it's just like a quick glimpse of things. She's been attacked. My aunt's been attacked. She had two German shepherds completely slaughtered. It could have been an animal. They lived out. My grandparents lived out there. That's where my native comes from. It's from my mom's side. So we've always had, and our native side had like things, unexplainable things happen. Around that, there was a unmarked graveyard that was around that place too. So there was a lot of just shady stuff that happened around that place that my grandparents lived. But there was also mountain lions. So I mean, it could have been certain things, but there was a fire that wasn't proved to be arson, but it burned in a perfect circle, and everything down in that circle was burnt, but anything outside the circle wasn't burnt, and it wasn't charred or anything. It was just like perfectly fine, random pieces of wood and material, and then all of a sudden just charred to nothing. And so just a bunch of random stuff, bad dreams, um, man, you name it. Just things happen there, and things that I vaguely remember being really little, seeing like shadowy things at the end of the hall. staring at me with glowing eyes. I mean, you name it, I've probably seen it. My mom and my aunts saw things, glowing eyes, those kind of things. Things trying to reach out at them, grab them at night. We were not allowed, even me as a kid was not allowed to go outside at night. On top of just weird shit in general, there's bats out there, there's mountain lions, so it could be anything. But and so a lot of weird things happen to my mom and my aunts, and a lot of unexplainable things. But fast forward to their more adult life, right? They're living in the city. They moved away from their parents, and my aunt bought this place in Oklahoma City, and it had a building in the backyard, like a separate building, like separate house basically, like a small house. And my mom lived there for a while, and both my aunts lived there for a while, and eventually my mom moved out. She ended up getting married, and then my other aunt, I think she bought a new place and left that for my younger aunt. I think is that how that, I don't know, not entirely sure, but she was dating this guy for a while. Well, they split, and they sold it. I think he bought it. He got married again. Somehow he bought it. Well, this guy kidnapped a woman, and they had a son. And his wife had a son. And I think at the time he was maybe like teenage years. I don't really remember, but they kidnapped this woman. They tortured her, raped her, and a bunch of horrible things. I don't know. I don't remember if she died or not. I don't remember that part of the story. I wasn't really told too many details about that part of the story. But eventually these guys got caught, and I think they're still in jail, including the wife because she knew about it. At the next person to own that house went insane. He lived there by himself. It was a maybe 4 or 5 bedroom house. And it had like 2 living rooms. It had a garage, but it was converted into like a playroom type thing. And it was like a studio type office above that. And he lived there all by himself. Well, my aunt bought it back. I remember I was maybe 12. Maybe 10, 12. And we go back to this place, and I remember walking in, and the first thing you saw was all these like Egyptian paintings everywhere, just topless women painted all over the front room, all Egyptian like, right? Every room had its own type of painting. There was I remember there was this back bedroom. It was all black. It was this massive skull at the ceiling, and there was something in the bathroom. I remember my parents would not let me in to see. I remember I looked through the peephole or the keyhole, and it was painted to be like a black widow. I remember that. I looked through the peephole, and I couldn't even remember what I saw. It was just so black and dark, but the kids were not allowed in there. So to this day, I couldn't. I tried asking my mom like a couple of years ago, like what was in that bathroom. But then I remember like my mom telling me that when this woman was, or no, I think my aunt told me. I don't think my mom ever told me. I think my aunt told me, but there was a basement, and I'd never seen a basement in that house. So maybe that actually led to the basement. I don't know, but it was always locked. Never could go in there. And I don't remember what all the other rooms were painted. It was just all weird. And apparently the guy went kind of crazy and ended up going to the hospital. And they ended up, I guess the house went to foreclosure. I'm guessing at this point. I don't really remember. But somehow my aunt and my uncle bought it back. Well, the back room, or not the back room, the back house, which was like, I think it was like a front room, a bedroom, and a bathroom. And I remember me and my aunt, my youngest aunt, we walked out there to look at it, and it literally looked like the whole building imploded on itself. The outside, the exterior looked perfectly fine, but there was so much junk in that house, in that small little tiny house, that it was all the way up in like to my aunt's waist, like of just destroyed pieces of wood and glass, and like it just completely full, just almost like everything just imploded into that house. I mean, it was weird. And anyway, they painted it, did all that stuff. I hated that house. Absolutely hated that house. every time I would stay the night there, it would always be so cold, and my aunt had these black leather couches, right? Um, this is early '90s, or yeah, like well mid '90s, but she had these black leather couches, so it was uncomfortable. It was already freezing in that house. I mean, absolutely so cold, uncomfortably cold all the time. Didn't matter how many blankets I had, I was always freezing every time. And I never got sleep in that house. And the reason why is I would always feel like something was pinching me or picking at me all night long. Just something just grabbing at me, like just a little bit. And it drove me insane. Like I hated that place. Um, and there's at one point when I wasn't there, my cousin was a baby, and my aunt went to go check on him. He was in the studio office, and she walks past the garage, which is not really a garage, it's a playroom, and she goes up the stairs, and the first thing she sees when she gets over to where it's like a type of fence type thing or whatever to keep you from falling uh, off the studio part into the stairs or whatever. And so she was walking up the stairs, she could see
Banister
through
or
this
something.
like a banister type thing, and she could see through it. And there was this thing. She said it was a demon, like horns and everything, just reaching out towards Gage. And she screams. I don't remember what she screamed. She screamed something, and this thing looked up at her, just with this malice in his eyes, and then turned and ran towards. And there was like this closet with a circular window, and it ran to that and ran right through it and disappeared. And that's in her words. When I would stay, I don't know. It was like it was just kind of like driving me nuts, like driving me crazy. I'd make up these random stories and stuff, and I would just get like really into it. I'd be like talking to myself and stuff, like I'm talking to these like some weird spirits and stuff. I mean, I was like 10, I guess, just being a weird kid or whatever. But it's because I couldn't sleep when I was there. There was always something trying to talk to me, or something trying to pinch me, or something, just constantly. And so it kind of made me into like a kind of a weird kid for a good minute every time I was there. But I remember one time, and it's still pretty clear. I felt really uncomfortable in the playroom, and this is the last time I've ever been in that room. Um, Everyone left but me, and it was black, like someone turned the lights off. And I was heading up ahead like 2, 3 steps, like wooden steps, up into this like quick little hallway, and then into the front room. And I would remember climbing up, or walking up the steps, and I happened to hear something like hiss or something. And I look to my left, down, and I see something just crawled up in that corner, just black as night, just malice in its face, and it reached out at my feet, and I just took off. And I remember feeling a tug in my pants, and I just ran. I ran. I started crying. And I was like, "What's the matter? What's the matter?" And I just didn't say anything. And then, but ever since then, never went in that room. And that was. It took a lot for me to remember that. I do this thing, and we'll get it more into that whenever we finally do our like depression video and stuff like that. But I do this thing where, like when something very badly traumatizes me, like I just shut it out. I completely shut it out. Like I forget it, and it usually doesn't come back until like years later. Which I have a story with that in a very thing in mind, which I'll tell next. But yeah, it was pretty scary. That I hated that house. It eventually there was enough things that kept happening to my aunt, to my cousins, that my aunt's like, we're done, and like sold that place. And I think it's still pretty. This is also around the time that my uncle was good friends with a bunch of Hell's Angels, and they would come around, and I got to play with like dinosaurs and stuff with the Hell's Angels. It was pretty neat. Like some of them
Play
were
with
really
dinosaurs?
good guys. Huh?
Oh, you mean like toy dinosaurs?
Yeah. I had like my toy dinosaurs out and stuff, and we'd be playing. I remember I don't remember this guy's name, but he was a big, scary looking dude. Tattoos everywhere, huge beard, and he would always like, he would like avoid the adults when he first, pulled up, and went straight to me, and like we would play dinosaurs and superheroes and stuff, and he was just a really cool dude, and there was a bunch of them were really, really cool people. So I got to hang out with Hell's Angels when I was when I was little, but But yeah, there was some just crazy stuff. I don't remember everything. I just those are the things that really stick out, and that's just from my things that I know and the things that happened to me. There's other things that happened in that place that I don't either remember or that I don't know that because all my cousins had something from that place. My aunts had something from that place. Um, yeah, we just no one goes back there. So, yeah, here you go. You can have this hat back.
This one happened whenever I was a kid, and this one was one of the big moments, scary moments in my life with unexplained shit. And I think that this one I sort of attribute to it being at nighttime. Now I know for a fact it wasn't a dream. I know that for a fact, but I do attribute it to being a nighttime and not and being little. So I don't know, but it was definitely something I can't explain. I know for a fact I wasn't asleep for it, so this was it wasn't a night terror, you know, which I did have sleeping disorders, but it wasn't a night terror, it wasn't a, you know, a prolonged dream or anything like that or a waking dream. It's something I really experienced, but I believe, you know, it was late, and I was young, so my perceptions were probably a little askew. But this is what I experienced, and I'll let you decide. I was very little kid. Now, like I've told you before, Winter, is that I I was very poor growing up. We were really poor. So whenever I was very young, me and my brother we shared not just a room, but we shared a bed too. So we didn't have enough beds for us to have a bed of our own, each have a bed of our own. So how we it wasn't a little bed. It's about a I think about if I remember right, it was about a full size I think, um, and we would it might have been a twin because we were pretty little, but I don't really remember the size of the bed. It doesn't it's irrelevant to the story. I just didn't want I just didn't want to paint a picture that we were basically laying on top of each other. But we were both little kids, very little, and I think this was even before I was going to school. I can't remember, but anyway, he would lay at one end of the bed, and I would lay at the other end of the bed. We didn't have a lot of bedrooms either. It was a very small house. So my parents' bed was across the room, and our bed was on the other side of the room. Whatever. We it was a big. It wasn't really a bedroom. It was more like a den area, but we would use it like a bedroom. There was a bedroom, an actual bedroom, but it was very small and we did they didn't use it like a bedroom. I forget. I think we used it for storage or something. All irrelevant to the story. I just kind of wanted to paint the picture of more or less a large room, sort of in the middle of the house, and two different beds. My parents were in their big bed, and we were over on our little one across the room. Well, there was an attached bathroom too, to that, or a bathroom that was directly attached to that room. The only bathroom in the house, we only had one, and at nighttime, the only light that was on in the house because my mom could not. I mean, my parents they both had myopia, and so do I. So I do now. I didn't at the time. We're nearsighted, and and didn't and my mom didn't see well at nighttime anyway, and so leave the bathroom light on. I think a lot of people do that. Some people who can't find their way safely to the bathroom without tripping over crap. So the bathroom light was always on. It's pretty bright. I think for some reason my parents only ever had 100-watt bulbs in every single outlet that we had. So there's very harsh lighting everywhere in the house, and so the bathroom was lit up like I don't know. It was bright. Okay, so it's bright coming from the bathroom. Well, I needed to use the bathroom in the middle of the night. I wake up and I'm like, I gotta pee. And I was really little at the time, and I did wet the bed sometimes. And I was trying to not wet the bed because I was old enough to where I was like, I'm trying to not have an accident in the bed, especially considering that I share it with my brother. And I was kind of just at the point where I wouldn't just I was old enough to where I didn't necessarily just comfortably sleep through having to piss in the bed anymore. So when I would wake up and I have to piss, I would get up and go pee, not try to go back to sleep because, you know. So I'm getting up and I'm getting out of bed and I start walking towards the bathroom. And of course, my eyes are still adjusting, and because the light's bright and I'm walking towards it. Well, you know, I'm pretty young, so my eyes adjust pretty quickly. And as I'm walking, I can see now. To sort of describe to the bathroom, so you can see into the door. There's no door on the bathroom. I think there was at one time. It was removed. Whatever. We were a family. Didn't make it really any difference. It was just me, my brother, my mom, and my dad. If someone was in the bathroom, taking a bath or something, you just, didn't go in it unless they had the curtain closed and you were just pissing or something. But anyway, um, I'm heading towards the bathroom now. The bathroom, the light's coming out, and you can see the back of the bathroom, which is the tub and everything like that, and a medicine cabinet next to it. The light is on the wall, the opposite wall, not the wall that I can see into. It's on the opposite wall. That's also where the sink and the mirror is. The light is basically above the sink. So if someone were standing in front of the mirror with the light on, their shadow is cast against the wall that you can see from as you're approaching the bathroom from outside of the bathroom. This is what I saw. I saw a shadow there. Short, uh, woman shadow there. I'm continuing to walk to the bathroom because in my mind I see this, and nothing really goes through my mind because in my mind Mama's in the bathroom. As I'm walking towards the bathroom, I'm passing my parents' bed, and I'm about halfway to the bathroom. Now the shadow is just sort of standing there, and it's sort of moving. When I say rocking back and forth, not in an unnatural fashion, you know how you might stand if you're just standing in place. You're not standing perfectly still. Nobody does. You sort of shift weight from one foot to the other, whatever. Because standing absolutely still, nobody does it. It's uncomfortable. You sort of rock back and forth and move around as though you're standing, shifting weight back and forth. This is what the shadow's doing. But in my mind, it's my mom's shadow. Then I realize, as I'm passing my parents' bed, from my peripheral vision, when I don't think anything at first, but I turn to look, expecting to see my dad asleep in the bed, and my mom's side, basically the blanket pulled back. What I see is both my mom and my dad in bed, asleep,
Oh.
and I immediately stop. And if you recall from my last story, how I reacted to what I saw in the mirror,
Mm-hmm.
I have a very similar reaction to this. I don't know what to do, and then I was like, what is happening? Because I realized, I started thinking, I was like, am I dreaming? Well, I wasn't dreaming. I was awake because I stayed awake for quite a while after that happened. I couldn't fall asleep. But I'm standing there and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, where do I look? What do I do? And then it pops into my head. I was like, I don't know exactly what I saw in the shadow. It was Aaron. Because I was like, I'm forgetting about Aaron, who's my brother.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I was like, it's him, obviously. Well, I don't quite have the nerve to look back up. So I turn and I look at my brother's bed, or our bed, and my brother's in bed. That's everybody. So I don't know what to do. What I want to do is scream and wake my parents up, but I'm terrified. What I want to do is run back to my bed. I somehow it's funny that that a kid me at that age was braver, I think, than I was as an adult, because I was like, what I saw can't be what I saw. So I eventually muster the courage to look up and look back into the bathroom, not knowing what I'm expecting to see. What I saw was exactly what I had seen before. The shadow is still there. It is, but now as I am looking, I can see it in much greater detail, and it is obviously not my mother. And it is the shadow of a woman with curly hair, around my mother's height, but is slightly shorter, I believe, a little thinner. It was not my mom. And it's more or less doing the same thing, only now it's sort of moving back and forth. Like it's sort of walking to one side of where the sink would be to the other. I'm horrified. I don't know what I'm looking at because I'm pretty young, but I'm horrified that whoever this is or whatever I'm looking at is going to come out of the bathroom. It's going to because it's not far from my vision. All it would have to take is a couple of steps to the side and it would be in front of the door. And I can see nothing but the shadow at this point, and I'm scared to death. I can't go in the bathroom. I had to piss so goddamn bad. I can't go in the bathroom. I thought I was like I can wake my parents up and this will solve all this, but I just don't have the courage because I feel this looming um this looming feeling that if I call attention to this, something bad is going to happen. So I'm thinking I was like, what are my options here? Really, it's only wake up my parents or go back to bed. So I don't know if you ever did this as a kid. You know how you walk sort of on your tiptoes, but you can sort of run on your
Mm-hmm.
tiptoes. Do you know what I'm
Yep.
talking about?
Yeah.
All right, that's what I did. For some reason, I felt like I make less noise in this fashion, and that's what I was doing. I sort of like ran like that back to the bed, and I sort of did this little knee jump, like pull my legs up and sort of fly over Aaron because I was on the opposite side, the side facing the wall. I get to the bed, and then I get under the covers and I sort of look back towards the bathroom. The shadow's still there. Turned away. I sat there and I just pretended to be asleep. And the next morning, or the next day when I woke up, I don't think my brother was out of bed yet, but my parents were. And I get up, and of course, there's much more light in the house. The lights are on. They have the lights on. There's windows, you know, light coming in through the windows. And I look towards the bathroom again, trying to see if I do I still see what I saw then. Of course, it's not there. Now, I never didn't tell my parents about this right away. Sometime later, which I could not tell you how much time it was, it could have been years. I don't really remember. I feel like it wasn't that long. My parents start talking about that the house that they had. My school teacher, my third grade school teacher, had a friend of hers, a very close friend or a sister, I can't remember which. Apparently, her and her husband used to own that house and live in it. Her husband died. Well, they got older. She was around the age that Miss Terry, my third grade teacher, was. Her husband, they got older, and her husband died. She was sort of, you know, wrought with depression because she was alone and she was elderly. Not super elderly, but she was in her like late 50s, early 60s. She was not didn't have I guess a lot of people who were close to her. Just Miss Terry was, but she was more or less alone. So what she did was, and the only reason I found out because my mom was talking about it, which is apparently something that they knew, and they didn't tell us because they didn't want to scare us. But we were older at this point, I'm thinking. But anyway, she for whatever reason they were talking about the story, and the woman who lived there at the house hung herself in the closet, which is right next to the bathroom. And I remember that closet. It's not a very tall closet, and because even I could grab the bar and do a pull up on it. I was just a little kid, and I told my mom I was like, she hung herself in the closet. How? It's so short. And she was like, well, you know how Miss Terry is shorter than you. I mean, she was. She was extremely short woman. And it's like how Mrs. Terry is short, really short. And it's like, yeah, it's like she was even shorter than Miss Terry. And she's like, she was really distraught after her husband died, and she had nobody, no family, anything like that. She just couldn't handle being alone, And so she did, I guess, for lack of a better way to kill herself, she decided to hang herself in the closet, which she did. And my mom was kind of, I think she wasn't really thinking about the fact that they were talking about this in front of us until I started engaging in the conversation. Then she wanted to contextualize it and sort of tell me, well, this is, basically try to kidify it, try to tell
Right.
me. It's like she was very sad. It's not something anyone should do, but she was blah, blah, blah. And after she told me that it was that she was really short woman, and how old she was. And I was like, what did she look like? And I started asking, and mom was like, she had curly hair. She's a little thinner than me, more or less. Now, that's not how she actually said it to me, but those were the 2 points that I remembered from it because. And then I'm starting to get, I guess, visibly afraid because I'm remembering that thing that happened. Because I do know what ghosts are at that point. I was at least in third grade, and then and Mama's like, she's thinking that I'm just scared because she's telling me this story, and she's like, it's nothing to be afraid of, blah blah. And then I was like, there's something I want to tell you, but I'm kind of afraid to. And she's like, what? Because we're talking about death, and so then she doesn't know what I'm talking about, so she's afraid because she's thinking I'm going to tell her something bad, something that I could get in trouble for, or some crap. She doesn't know what I'm about to tell her because I guess she can tell how afraid I am. So I was like, and I basically recounted for her this experience. My mom was assured that what I had seen was a ghost. I do not know if that's the case, but I remember it was absolutely unnerving. Now, other than the fact that I was afraid, I never experienced anything negative from this. Like wasn't trying to come after me. It was just whatever I saw was just standing there in the
Mm-hmm.
bathroom, but it was blocking out light and cast a shadow. It was just standing there, and it looked exactly like a short older woman with curly hair, and this was before, of course, I'd ever known any of those things. And so it was that was really terrifying moment as a kid. It's something I still remember to this day. Obviously, it scared me a lot. And just to add a little bit to that, because it's not really worth so I don't really think this is worth having its own story. Um, Later on, so living in that house, my dad would always and forever be losing his tums. So for anyone who doesn't know what tums are, and I'm sure you already know, but they're antacids. I think that's pretty common. But just in case anyone doesn't know, it's a little antacid tablets. He had really bad acid reflux and heartburn, and he would take them all the time. Well, he was forever losing them, and it was always irritating to me because he was also forever having me find them. And the funny thing was is that they were always under the couch, the edge of the couch in the living room. And I would always tell him, I would always ask him, I was like, did you look under the edge of the couch? He's like, no, because I don't put them under the edge of the couch. And I was like, yes, you do, because they are always there. Is that I told him, I was like, you are always putting him there. Why don't you just look there before you have me go do it? And I was just always just like, he's just having me do this because he's, lazy. So I figured he would lay on the couch or he'd sit on the couch. He'd set him down there. And then that's what happened. Well, one day, he's in now. At this point, we had redone our house. Eventually, we were a little bit older. Me and my brother, we share the same bedroom, but we have our own beds. And my parents took the little bedroom that I described before that we used as storage, and they used it as an actual bedroom to sleep in. So my dad was in the bedroom watching TV, and he wants his Tums, and he's yelling at me and thing. He's like, bring me my Tums, find my Tums, and bring them to me. And I was like, oh. So I go and I go into the little living room area. I get down on the ground and I look under the edge of the couch, and sure as shit, there they are, laying there. I pick him up and I yell to him, you left them under the edge of the couch again. He's like, no, I didn't. Blah blah blah. And he even said one time that We were putting them under there, is what he would tell me. And I was like, why the hell? Obviously, I didn't speak to my dad like that. The way that I'm just paraphrasing here. But
Right.
obviously, I didn't speak to my dad the way I'm doing this. So, but more or less, I sort of conjectured, why the hell would I get out of picking up your Tums and hiding them under the edge of the couch, knowing that I will be the one who has to bring them to you again? I was like, why would I be making work for myself? What am I getting out of that? And well, anyway, I go. His Tums are there. I get them. I pick them up. Now, if you've ever handled a bottle of Tums that's say about half full, like this one was, they make a lot of noise. They're like little rattles. They like,
Right.
like whenever you're moving them around. I'm carrying it to the bedroom, and stop in front of a pull-out couch that we had in the living room. So we had two couches. There's a pull-out couch. And the reason why I stopped in front of the couch was because I had been looking for my starter jacket. I had a cowboy starter jacket, and I had been looking for it, and I couldn't find it for about a month or whatever. And I don't know why, but it just dawns on me as I'm walking in front of the couch. I'm like, oh crap! I bet I had this couch pulled out whenever the jacket is in there. Like, it just dawned on me, like, oh my god, because I couldn't find it anywhere. I thought one of my friends stole it who was over. But I was like, oh my god, I bet it's in the couch. So I set the Tums down on the coffee table right next to me, and I'm digging in the couch. Now, I don't remember whether I found the jacket or not. What I do remember was it only took me about a minute's worth of digging to decide that it wasn't in there, or it was in there, and I found it, one or the other. So I get up, I set the cushion back down, and then I turn to grab the Tums. They're not there. I had just set them there. And so I'm stopping, I was like, did I get them? I was like, yeah, I set them right there. And I was like, okay. I was like, Daddy? I'm yelling at him from the other room. He's like, what? I was like, did you get the Tums? He's like, no, I told you to get them. I was like, yeah, I know. Did you pick them up off the coffee table? He's like, no. And I was like, okay. I'm like, Mama? I'm like yelling at her. She's in the kitchen. And I ask her the same question. No. My brother is not there. And I'm looking over at the couch. And I was like, what are the chances? Because I absolutely remember I was not I was young. I was not blanking on this. I had picked up the Tums, yelled at my dad. I found them. They're under the couch. He once again refuted that they weren't there. He didn't put them there. I set them on the coffee table. Did this. This only took in about the span of a minute. Being away, I turned around and they were gone. I go back over to the couch. I stick my head under the couch, and there they are again, under the edge of that fucking couch, right where they were before, right where they've been every time my dad has lost them, every time I have found them.
At least that makes it convenient. At least you don't know. At least you'll know where they are.
I pick them up again, and when I do, just like any time you move the bottle of Tums, they make a loud kind of rattle noise for whenever you're repositioning the bottle. You're taking it to the upright position or turning it to the side position. Makes a loud sort of sound as and it occurs to me that if somebody was in the house, which I didn't believe, was playing a prank on me, it would have been impossible for them to have come up next to me, but continuing on for the entire time that we were staying in that house and my dad was alive. And his Tums were the only things that he could never find, and they were always being moved, and they were always under the edge of that couch.